To understand the tempestuous reign of Pope Julius II, we must first look at the Italy he inherited. By the turn of the 16th century, the Italian peninsula was not a unified nation, but a patchwork of competing communes, duchies, and republics, all fighting for primacy. It was a chaotic theater where the major powers of Europe, France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire, clashed violently for control. The papacy itself was deeply entangled in these secular power struggles. Before Julius ascended the throne, the chair of St. Peter had been occupied by Alexander VI, a member of the Spanish house of Borgia. The Borgia reign was characterized by nepotism and the aggressive expansion of family power, particularly through Alexander's son, Caesar Borgia. The church was in a precarious position. The papal states were fragmented, ruled by local lords who paid little more than lip service to Rome. The moral authority of the church was under scrutiny, and the political independence of Italy was threatened by what were colloquially called the barbarians, foreign armies from the north. Into this volatile world stepped Giuliano della Rovere. He was the nephew of a previous pope, Sixtus IV, who had raised him from a noble but impoverished background to the heights of the church hierarchy. But unlike many of his peers, Giuliano was not content with mere survival. He carried an ancient grudge against the Borgias and a fierce desire to restore the glory of the church. As we shall see, he would not be a man of peace, but a man of action, a figure who would define the High Renaissance.
Giuliano della Rovere was born in 1443 in Albisola, near Genoa. Educated among the Franciscans by his uncle Francesco, he was elevated to the cardinalate in 1471 when that uncle became Pope Sixtus IV. This act of nepotism launched a career marked by accumulation of power. Giuliano held multiple bishoprics simultaneously from Avignon to Bologna. However, his path to the papacy was blocked by his bitter rival, Cardinal Rodrigo Borgia. When Borgia became Pope Alexander VI in 1492, Giuliano's position became perilous. Fearing for his safety, he fled to France, spending years in exile, where he cultivated alliances with the French king Charles VIII. He even accompanied the French army when it invaded Italy, riding alongside the king as they entered Rome, a stark foreshadowing of his later military life. Following the death of Alexander VI and the brief 27-day reign of Pius III, the moment for Giuliano had finally arrived in 1503. The conclave was swift. Through a combination of dexterous diplomacy, promises of money, and sheer force of personality, Giuliano secured the votes of the cardinals. He took the name Julius II. Historians speculate this was not chosen to honor the minor Pope Julius I, but rather in emulation of Julius Caesar. This choice was a declaration of intent. Upon his election, he refused to live in the apartments desecrated by the Borgias, ordering their seals covered in black crepe and declaring, "I will not live in the same rooms as the Borgias lived." The era of the Borgias was over. The era of the warrior pope had begun. Julius II wasted no time in fulfilling his imperial ambitions. His primary goal was to centralize the papal states and, famously, to free Italy from the barbarians. To do this, he needed loyal soldiers. On January 22, 1506, he founded the Pontifical Swiss Guard, enlisting Swiss mercenaries renowned for their discipline to serve as his personal protection, a legacy that endures to this day. Unlike his predecessors, Julius did not just send generals to fight, he led them. He was nicknamed the Warrior Pope, or Il Papa Terribile, because of his violent temper and energy. In 1506, he personally commanded a campaign to retake Perugia and Bologna from local despots, successfully bringing these cities back under direct papal control. His foreign policy was a complex web of shifting alliances. In 1508, he joined the League of Cambrai alongside France and the Holy Roman Empire to curb the power of the Republic of Venice. But once Venice was humbled at the Battle of Agnadello, Julius realized that French influence in Italy was becoming too dangerous. In a dramatic reversal, he reconciled with Venice in 1510 and formed the Holy League against his former French allies. His battle cry became "Fuori I barbari," out with the barbarians. He personally led papal forces at the siege of Mirandola, an act that shocked contemporaries. Although the French initially defeated the League at the Battle of Ravenna in 1512, they were eventually forced to retreat behind the Alps. By the end of his life, Julius II was celebrated at the Roman Carnival as the liberator of Italy, having vastly expanded the temporal power of the Church. While Julius II fought wars on the battlefield, he launched an equally ambitious campaign to transform Rome through art and architecture. The year 1506 was miraculous for the history of the Vatican. In January of that year, the famous Laocoon sculpture group was discovered in a Roman vineyard. Julius immediately acquired it, displaying it in the courtyard of the statues. This act effectively founded the Vatican museums, opening the Holy See to the world of culture. But his greatest architectural dream was the rebuilding of St. Peter's Basilica. The old Constantinian basilica, standing for over 1,000 years, was dilapidated. Julius made the radical decision to demolish it. On April 18, 1506, he laid the foundation stone for the new St. Peter's, commissioning the architect Donato Bramante to design a structure that would overshadow the temples of antiquity. To decorate this new Rome, Julius summoned the greatest artists of the age. He commissioned Raphael to paint his private apartments, the stanze, creating masterpieces like the School of Athens, which celebrated humanistic knowledge alongside theology. Most famously, Julius's relationship with Michelangelo defined the era. Initially, Julius commissioned Michelangelo to build a colossal tomb for him, a project that would plague the sculptor for decades. However, the Pope paused the tomb project, forcing a reluctant Michelangelo to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel instead. The task was immense. Michelangelo, who considered himself a sculptor, had to build his own scaffolding and work in uncomfortable conditions. Yet, between 1508 and 1512, he created one of the wonders of the world. The ceiling depicts the history of the world before the law of Moses, from the creation of Adam to the drunkenness of Noah. When the Pope complained that the frescoes lacked gold and looked poor, Michelangelo famously retorted that the holy men depicted were not rich characters, but spiritual ones. By the time Julius II died in February 1513, he had fundamentally reshaped Rome. He left a city that was undergoing a massive urban renewal known as the Renovatio Romae. He commissioned the creation of new straight streets, such as the Via Giulia and the Via della Lungara, improving the flow and beauty of the city. His legacy is complex. As a politician, he succeeded in making the Church the main force in Italy, centralizing the papal states and crushing the minor lords who had fractured the region. However, his dream of a fully united, independent Italian kingdom remained unfulfilled, as foreign armies would return to plague the peninsula. Culturally, his impact is unmatched. He presided over what has been poetically defined as a season of giants. Without his patronage and his demanding, sometimes violent nature, the world might never have seen the new St. Peter's Basilica, the Vatican museums, or the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Julius II was the first pope to grow a beard in mourning for the temporary loss of Bologna, a style that broke centuries of tradition and was copied by his successors for nearly 200 years. He was a man of contradictions, a Franciscan friar who led armies, a spiritual leader who named himself after Caesar, and an elderly man with the terrible energy to command geniuses like Michelangelo and Raphael. In the end, Julius II transformed the Vatican from a medieval fortress into a palace of the High Renaissance, leaving a physical and artistic legacy that still defines the center of the Catholic world today.
Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that shaped our world.